It's the natural thing to do. For information, visit franklinbellinghamrailtrail.org. Local community radio in the public interest. You're listening to WFPR-LP, Franklin on 102.9 FM. Visit us anytime, day or night, on the web at wfpr.fm. We're so glad you could join us.
This is Steve Sherlock with another Franklin Matters radio show, number 843 in the series. This session of the show shares...
Hey, Patrick, do you want to move over? There's like an empty chair up there. So we're going to move Patrick over.
Switch the name tags as well.
Chris is the PA. The PA's on, so I don't have to hit that button.
Chris Alliant.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call the Economic Development Subcommittee Steering Committee. This is a joint meeting tonight to order for September 21st, 2022, time being 6:02. Tonight, we have Jamie Helen, the administrators, on Zoom. Bruce Hunchard is on Zoom, and the rest of us are in the chambers. Note to residents, all citizens are welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Additionally, in an effort to maximize citizen engagement opportunities, citizens will be able to continue to participate remotely via phone or Zoom. The meetings will also be live streamed by Franklin TV and shown on Comcast Channel 11 and Verizon Channel 29. The call-in number, the Zoom link is on the agenda on the town website. The call-in number is 1-929-205-6099. The meeting ID number is 833-1882-7135. That's 833-1882-7135, and then you press the pound button. Okay, all right, so here we all are tonight. So tonight we have two things on the agenda. The first is a discussion about the Franklin for All MAPC study and with the EDC Plus. Councilor Frangillo is here with us in the chambers now. And the second is the downtown parking lot proposal, which is what the EDC has been working on, but everyone is welcome to hang out and help and have fun with us. Okay. So I will send it over. I'm going to send it to Jamie first and see if it should go to Brian, or we'll let Jamie start.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and through you to the committee. I'm going to try to go through this this first section to follow along here. So for the item number one, the Franklin for All, if folks recall at the last meeting, when everybody made their recommendations or their votes in August, we told everybody that we would come back on September 21st and give everybody an update after the staff was able to pick up all the pieces here and see where everything fit and come with a proposed timeline for the work that was prioritized by the committee, but also blended in a couple of other items that were on the town council goals this year. We can't forget about those, right, Madam Chair? And so before you on the second page of the packet tonight is a short memo from me, a one-pager, just a brief line-by-line order of events that we're proposing to the group. There's a second memo in here by the planning staff that outlines in a little greater detail kind of some of the framework for each individual issue that was a part of the Franklin for All project. I will note that the content that people see in the memo, again, is to frame in the community planning office, I should say, is intended to frame the substance of the debate. It does not necessarily mean by the time we get through all this work, the details of all that may not be exactly what's put forward. Certainly the committee has all the the roles. If they want to change some of the details, they can. But as we mentioned in August, this is a tremendous amount of work with a lot of moving pieces, particularly with the Mbta zoning and the legislature considering accessory dwelling units and some other things. We just wanted to put out a timeline in the order of events. And so really quickly, Madam Chair, the proposed timeline that the staff have put together is, as you mentioned earlier in the meeting, the downtown parking district and parking lots bylaw amendment. That is a town council goal that does not necessarily relate to the Franklin for All project, even though it does overlap a little bit. We're going to be having the first discussion on those proposed maps in a little bit. And then we're proposing to move into inclusionary zoning and look at the downtown MBTA zoning requirements. The regulations by the state have been codified over the summer. As I pointed out somewhere in a memo, those are the regulations, at least for now. We don't know if an incoming governor will change those. And so really cities and towns are being advised right now to follow at least what the guidelines are and the timelines that have already been codified in law. So I hope to have a discussion on that at the EDC level next month. And then the third priority is one of the ones from the Franklin for All project, the accessory dwelling units. The legislature is considering some legislation in an economic development bill that still has some promise to get done by the end of the calendar year. The staff do think it's advantageous that we wait for that to conclude. And at the latest, we would begin talking about accessory dwelling unit zoning in Franklin in January, which is when the new legislative session would start. And then I also added in here, just for everybody's information, we've talked about it before, but these are also council goals and huge community priorities. The open space and recreation plan expires at the end of the year. And we anticipate starting that process as early as next month, where there'll be an update before the Conservation Commission as to what that timeline will look like. But that will likely take us all the way into next spring. And then a couple of the other projects, the 40R public discussion, we hope to have next winter in 2023. The shared parking concepts, the next spring and summer of 2023, which is another priority from the Franklin for All steering committee. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this, because we have talked about it, but now it's getting a lot closer. The townwide master plan, the 10-year townwide master plan process, we anticipate kicking off next spring and summer of 2023. That'll take a little while, and it'll be a separate committee that will deal with that. But the great news is, between Franklin for All, the housing production plan, the marketing and tourist study that was done a year ago, the thriving arts and culture activities that are going on, we think there's already a lot of great work that's already been done that can be a part of that master planning effort. And then some of the other issues that many have brought up, maybe through these processes, can also be brought up if the council, and we don't get to them, at least they can be brought up for long-term planning at the townwide master plan effort. So that's the overview, Madam Chair. Happy to answer any questions. I don't know if Brian also may have some things to add. Thank you.
Brian, do you have anything to add? Does anyone, or would anyone like, do you have anything to add, Brian?
That's a great summary. If you have questions,
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Jamie or Brian? No? Okay. All right. So, Brian, would you like to explain, come up and talk about your memo? Did everybody get a chance to read the memo about what about his, it's a good memo. It has a lot of information in it. It talks about our recommendations and proposed zoning changes from the plan and planning issues and an update.
Yeah, I think, for the record, I'm Brian Taberner, Director of Planning and Community Development for the town. I wanted to make sure I summarized some of the things that we've been talking about. Now, for years, we've been talking about inclusionary zoning. We've been talking about the density of housing in the downtown. We have, at one time or another, talked about accessory dwelling units and all of those things that are on here. And one of the things that we had addressed through the Project for All project, one of the recommendations was shared parking in the downtown, which I tried to point out a couple of issues with that type of scenario as far as how it would impact the planning board and the town. So in general, I don't recommend moving forward with that other than what the administration is working on right now, which you're going to be talking about for a while. Shared parking is a difficult scenario. Let's just say I have 100 spaces that you could possibly share. How many should be committed to a different development? Who gets them? And things of that nature can be really challenging to implement. And if a new developer comes in and says, okay, I want half of my required block, it has to come from the shared spaces, you need to make a permanent agreement essentially with the town for that. You can't just base it on a 3-year agreement or something. It has to be really a long-term, if not permanent. So there are a lot of potential problems with that. In the future, if other properties open up, if Rockland Trust is redeveloped, well, who knows? I mean, there's a lot of great potential in the downtown right now. And nothing wrong with sharing parking spaces. But as far as I'm concerned, the planning board really needs something to hang their hat on when somebody comes in and says, I want to share a space with somebody, share some spaces with somebody. So anyway, that one issue is, I thought interesting. Accessory dwelling units are something that we will be spending quite a bit of time on. The state has is dealing with something, and that is more for seniors and people with disabilities. But there are a lot of other types of accessory dwelling units out there. I gave a little diagram that I pulled out of AARP's, the ABCs of ADUs. It's actually a great little summary document, and it shows, it shows 6 different examples of accessory dwelling units here, and the different types that are possible. And I think when we go look at the accessory dwelling units, adding right to our use tables that we will allow accessory use dwelling in certain districts and not in others, those type of things are pretty straightforward and easy to do. You develop a definition, requirements, things of that nature. So I don't see that as going to be a challenging situation. The 40R, which we'll get to in the future here, it won't be that far in the future, but what we need to do is really to get an expert or two in to talk with us on the best way to approach it. And we do have a little bit of funding we can hire a consultant with, things of that nature. So that'll be a good project that we'll be working on. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them. The inclusionary zoning bylaw, I'd like to get inclusionary zoning at least addressed on the books before we get into a 40R situation. Is it inclusionary zoning, the density in the downtown and other districts of housing, those will lay out a baseline of what we will be dealing with when we get to the 40R and any other zoning changes that we have in those areas. We're way overdue, and I think that that'll be very helpful. And I think we can also put in, maybe not in the zoning bylaw, but possibly as far as a so-called friendly 40B, that type of concept having it in there also. If the town is if somebody comes forward with an application, this is the process on that. We already developed a process in a way, which I think is fine, which we'll continue working with, but some of this could go into the actual bylaw, zoning bylaw in the future. So, any questions?
Does anyone have any questions for Brian? Councilor Frangillo?
Yeah, thank you for this, and I appreciate that you wrote out all your thoughts. The only concern, one concern I had was, the dismissal of the shared use parking policy for a few reasons. One is, I think that the recommendations of shared use parking policy from MAPC were not just focused on public lots, but we're really focused. I mean, number one is conduct outreach to business owners. Number two, on action items under that recommendation were initiate discussions with owners of private parking lots to understand their openness to shared use parking. That is the basis of the shared use parking. It's looking at our downtown and seeing that we have I want to say 150 plus within just the triangle alone spots, which are very, very, very rarely, if ever, close to full. And can we make better use of those spaces, right? That to me is what it's focused on, as well as how do we make better use of existing parking. When you get the two of those, now you're looking at 300 spaces that won't be full during the night times, and that's why they're looking at us and saying, hey, why would you ever have a developer want to come downtown and force them to create their own parking when you already have 300 spots that are free every night? I don't know, to dismiss that seems, it's the third study now that's come in. The 2008 study said to bolster our shared parking. The 2020 MEP study said to bolster our shared parking. This is now saying to bolster our shared parking. They gave us other towns that do it. I was looking at other towns that I like. Needham just had a study done, and there was the state telling them to develop a shared use parking program. So to say that it's complicated as a reason not to do it, I don't know. I just don't find very compelling. There's a reason why, the accepted best practices seem to be pointing toward developing shared parking.
Could I respond?
Mm-hmm.
If you can locate a property owner in the downtown, a private property owner, that wants to actually share their parking spaces with an adjacent property owner. We already have some of that downtown. But if you do have that, then that is a private property owner dealing with another private property owner. If you get a development that comes before the planning board and this developer says, so-and-so, a few hundred feet from my property, says I can share some of the parking spaces that they have available. They come in with an agreement that proves that, the planning board would likely say, great, there's nothing wrong with that, we can do that today, okay? So, so sharing a parking space is fine. To set up a program where it's not really necessary, if you will. I think if you want to push the issue and you want to contact property owners and that have parking spaces available, I think that's great. As you know, the Rockland Trust lot, I've been a couple of times over the years, a few times actually, I've talked with people about what are you going to do with your property? Hey, there's a lot of potential development here. You get a developer in there that has money that wants to deal with Rockland Trust on a mixed-use project or do something like that, they're willing to talk with you. But it's, you got to bring money to the game on something like that. The town going in and saying, hey, you got empty spaces here, I want it available for residents to live in the area so they can park there at night or something. I don't know. I mean, I think that complicates things, and I really don't know that I would be comfortable doing that. But if my boss says go do it, I'll make some phone calls and then I'll go forward. But I really don't know, how to establish a really good. If you go down to Hyannis, all right, they have a lot of off-street parking, underutilized, and they do have programs where the business starts up here, they're within a few hundred yards or whatever of a certain parking space. They can assume that some of the parking will be in that lot, and that it's part of their permitting process, because they have a lot of town and private parking, which they have, so they work something out. I don't know that we have enough in our downtown to bother. We have Rockland and we have some town spaces. And I would not want to, my own opinion of course, I wouldn't want to commit the town spaces long-term. You can't do, if you're gonna do it with a new developer, it has to be kind of a permanent situation. If it's not gonna be a permanent situation, you're gonna tell the planning board, well, for the next 5 years, I have an agreement here, but what do you do on year 6? Right? So if somebody has the idea in front of them, I would love to see it. I've done a little bit of research on other towns also. When I saw the proposal, hear me out, I stayed out of the way of MAPC and doing their study intentionally, because I did not want to be saying, this is the right thing to do, and or whatever. That's not what I did. Now I'm back to, maybe I'm not to be a planning director, but I'm back and saying a shared use process right now in our downtown. If we can establish parameters, great. If you can't, but you got to prove it that it's not going to be. A developer hears about, oh, the town of Franklin has shared use parking in their downtown. We can do that, but you have to have it with an adjacent property owner or somebody within a few hundred feet of their lot. We can do that today. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we want to do something else, then I'm wide open to the suggestions. But I just don't see it happening in the near future. That's all. So.
Yeah, maybe it's a different. Sorry, if I may continue.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe it's a different understanding of what a shared use parking program would look like. I'm certainly aware that we listed off as a possible reason to give out a special permit in the planning process is, if you share parking with another property, and I think that's all we say about it. So, to me, the recommendation here has a few pieces. One is making that process, like building that out and making it really clear. Okay, what is shared parking? Here's why we value it. What is it that you need to prove? If you get this number of spots, you can count it against your parking minimum, sort of thing, right? Building out the language in our bylaw to really make it clear that we're trying to encourage that sort of thing. The other is saying we're not giving up on talking to the downtown business owners that have an abundance of unused parking. Yeah, everything has a price. We have money, there's an appropriate amount that we would be willing to pay to free up more spaces, and it's saying let's go forward with that process. And the final is this idea of, as a developer comes in, can they count against their parking requirements? Can they use public lots to count against their parking requirements? And it seems like that would still be a positive thing. If you're within a certain distance of a public lot, then you need half as much of your commercial parking per X number of square feet. It might mean we're going to start offering what a lot of the downtowns, Natick, Amherst, Mansfield, East Hampton, Foxborough, have residential parking permits that they find the right price and say, you know, if your place doesn't have off-street parking, which we don't want to keep encouraging off-street parking, but if you go to a place without off-street parking, but still want to be able to bring a car, then there's some price for that you're going to pay the town in order to use our lots or use our existing parking. It's really just about, you know, finding the right price to better allocate existing resources as opposed to making people build out more parking, which we already have an overabundance of. So it might be about, you know, semantics or finding exactly what this would look like, but I'm not ready to give up on it as a concept.
I have a couple of real quick thoughts. One is that right now, if you go to the planning board and say, I'm supposed to have 50 spaces, I only have 25. Planning board can decide based on the neighborhood, based on adjacent town parking and everything else, whether it wants to waive down those 25 spaces. Has the right to do that right now. It's a situation by situation. You know, each development, each project that comes forward, they can do that. And many times, if not all the time, they do that type of thing. Whether sometimes they're only waiving it down 5 spaces if you need it 50 or whatever the case may be. But they have the ability to do that. So on that note, as far as I know, it seems like we have a lot of unused parking in the downtown. If you're always going to be able to find a parking space right now if you go down downtown. I agree with that. Many are on the road, a lot of them in town spaces. I hope we don't sell off or lease off in long-term spaces that can't be used by the general public and everything. So if you come up with scenarios you want to talk about, I think it's great. But I can't think of the perfect scenario right now. And I have thought about it a lot, where I think we have to be careful not to tell a developer, yeah, you can get 25 public spaces for your development. I think that's something that we really have to be careful not to do, unless they can prove that we don't need those spaces and never use them. The world is changing, as we know. I mean, less people are going to be having their own vehicle in the near future, hopefully. But to do that, public transportation has to get improved too, right? And so this includes a lot of concepts that all go together. And I don't know if we have time to fix all those, but I'm willing to look at any concepts that you want to bring forward. I really am. And I'll talk with Jamie on my priorities and which project comes first and all of that. If we need to step it up on this way, then we'll put aside something else and we'll go forward and do some research on that area. So.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Thank you, Council Frangillo. I'm gonna, Greg Rondo has his hand raised, and then we're gonna go to Bruce, and then I think Beth.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna chime in from the planning board aspect. I agree with Brian. I think it could be quite the legal quandrum trying to establish spaces in a municipal parking lot. Like Brian said, you give out the first 5 years, and then the 6th year, you get a developer comes in, he gets nothing. He's gonna feel as if he was discriminated against. And I also believe that one of the lots we don't own, that Dean owns, and we sublease it from them. So that's one lot off the table. I'm sure they're not gonna be privy to that. They're working with us as the town. So basically leaves 3 lots. Yes, we do have shared parking in a couple projects in town between private owners. It's come in front of us. We've allowed it. But you're also gonna make sure you don't overwhelm that existing parking lot that they're sharing too. So you have to take that into consideration. So, yes, I think every development should come in front of the planning board and provide parking as needed. And then we can make the decision on how many if we want to subtract 5, 10, 15, 20, depending on the situation. But I thought this whole purpose was to revitalize the downtown for the businesses and not for residential growth. And I believe in the survey that everybody did, everybody basically said they didn't want more residential growth downtown. They want the downtown to be revitalized with business, and I believe that's what it's all about, providing parking for the businesses and the people who run those businesses. So you can get in and out, and let the people in the downtown use it for that specific reason. And yet, one other situation, what happens when it comes to a snowstorm and you got 18 inches of snow and it's a private lot and all those cars are buried in the lot and they can't get the cars out, or they're parking in the street? Now, DPW can't snowplow the streets, the sidewalks, municipal lots, they can't open it up for everybody. I think it could create quite the quandrum legally. Shared lots, private to private, it's been done, let them go for it. Like Brian said, Rockland Trust wants to work with a developer, we're gonna do a mixed use, building there, shared parking, have to it. But, I think the whole purpose was to help the businesses and get some foot traffic downtown. That's all.
Thank you, Greg. Do you have a response, Brian, or we're gonna go, all right, I'm gonna go out to Zoom to Bruce.
Gotta unmute
He
Bruce.
has his hand on.
Sleeping.
He has his hand up, I think, right?
Wake up, Bruce.
I was muted, I'm
You're
sorry.
muted.
There you go.
You're
Can you hear me
muted,
now?
Bruce.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Brian, you put a lot of effort into R4 Smart Growth Zoning Overlay District. My understanding is that 40R is a state regulation already. And that my understanding also is that the town of Franklin has to adopt that regulation. Now, I understand you may want to put it in certain districts or whatever the overlay districts that you want to make 40R, but I don't know, why you got to go out and hire all the, what you talked about here. It just seems like a lot of extra work. It's got to be done to get 40R in place. I think the best thing to do, if you were going to get a 40R in place, would be to get it in place and see how it plays out. You always got I'm pretty sure that you probably could put some local, and I'm not even sure about this, but maybe you could put some local regulations in there, maybe a little bit more stricter than the state. I don't know. The other thing, as far as accessory dwelling units, people in town have been getting them for quite a while now in different districts. If you want to pinpoint them towards 4 and 5, that's fine up to the downtown district. I don't have any problem with that. Make them by right. But I can tell you that most of the residents that are in 4 and 5, if they have to put on any additions or anything, they're going to be before the ZBA anyway, because they're going to need relief, either sideline relief or whatever, because most of those lots are very small, and they bid that, and that's the way they are. But just to answer Greg's question, residential growth actually enhances economic development downtown. And I think one of the problems that you get with it, that you're not going to get any economic development unless you include residential in it, because people aren't going to come in and build a building, especially with some of the buildings that are downtown. Some of them are old, they may not be able to be rehabbed efficiently. You get other buildings that just definitely would probably have to come down and be replaced. And the only way you're going to do that is with the residential aspect, whether it be on the second, third, or fourth floor, So with all that being said, I think the memo was good. The memorandums are good. They spell out everything. There's actually, Jamie's got a pretty good timeline on all this stuff, because it doesn't happen overnight. So anyway, that's all I got to say, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Bruce.
Can I just answer Bruce one quick question too, if you can?
One quick question.
So it's not even a question, Bruce, I agree with you, about the residential growth, but there are underground parking garages that you can build structures on top of, podium-style buildings, 2-story under, 3 stories up. So there's the ability to get the parking on these lots. If they want the property that bad, they'll make it work. So that's all I just wanted to say.
I wasn't even talking about parking. I was talking about.
He's talking about residential,
No, I know.
adding
Residential
residential to
growth.
But
downtown.
I'm going from planning board side,
Right.
we need the parking in order to get the residential and vice versa.
No, I
So-
understand the parking issue.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's a planning board issue, because that came up before us and kind of pushed it off to you guys anyway.
So,
Isn't that nice?
yeah,
Yeah.
but you can do underground parking, and it's been done in town in a couple projects already, and it's
Right.
already on the books.
No, I understand. I understand completely about that. I didn't even have any concept of parking when I was talking about residential growth, you know?
Yeah, I think,
I'm just saying it'll work.
It's the only way
promoting
that, it's the only way that the commercial growth is gonna happen is if you got some residential that can back up somebody spending the money on a building. You know what it costs to build.
Correct.
And I understand that you can put a parking garage underground as long as you got enough property for it, you know?
Correct.
I mean, the downtown, I don't think has any, underground springs or anything that they'd have to find out about. And I don't think that even if there was leads, that's okay too. They could just blast it
Oil.
up, drill it out of the way.
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, thank you, Bruce. I
Thank
think,
you.
Thank you.
the whole thing is about mixed use, right? And so that's
Exactly.
commercial and residential, and we have enough space for people to feel comfortable. We have good sidewalks everywhere, so people can walk around. And that's kind of, I feel like that's the vision everybody wants, even though they might have filled out something differently. Beth?
Thank you. Brian and Amy, I know you both worked on this a lot, and a lot of effort was put into this, so thank you very much for all the work you put into it. Couple questions for you, and I'm not sure if my comment's going to be a little unpopular, but for 40R, you're looking at a density that's showing about, is it 20 units an acre, I think is the density for 40R, which is indicating that we're going to be covering the requirements for MBTA communities, which I think was kind of the basis for why we started all of this, is to look at the downtown area, kind of maybe a little bit expanded beyond that, to figure out how we can meet the MBTA communities. MBTA communities, in my understanding, is the density minimum is 15 units an acre, right? So in thinking about it, kind of along the lines of what you were saying, Greg, is kind of the survey happened, and a lot of consensus, I think, from a lot of people, and kind of, I don't know about you guys, but you hear a lot around town. Density is something people are concerned with right now, and too dense is the concern people are having. Why are we looking at 40R that is increasing the density per acre at 20 units an acre versus sticking with something that will meet the 15 units an acre, which maybe people might be a little bit more comfortable with if we have to go that route? And 40R, being a planner myself, don't disagree with hiring somebody outside of the planning office to take a look at it. I think you need another degree in all actuality to be able to understand what 40R is. In reading it myself, it's going to take another person besides Amy and Brian trying to work on getting 40R in place, if that's the route we're going to go. It's highly complex and hard to understand, even as a planner myself. So would agree with that if that's the route we go down. Definitely get somebody outside to understand this for us. Personally, I don't know if I think 40R is the best solution for us. I think finding a zoning that would be suitable to meet 15 units an acre would be great, and finding a place to make that work. And knowing that we might have or we will definitely have a new governor in place come November, and new people in new positions. I know we're going to look at is if we're going down the path of having MBTA communities in place, which is great. We definitely need some housing and need to support that. But it might change. So just making sure we are following what's in place, and I think the new final guidance was issued, what was it, in August? This past month, a couple months ago, August 22nd. And if I'm understanding it correctly, I think it said you can now look at how many developable acres are around your station to see if you can put, what was that?
More or less combine them?
Right, I think. So do we have to put all of this half-mile radius right in our downtown? Does it have to be all that density right downtown, or can we pick other areas? Do we have, what was that,
100 acres, you
100
said.
acres of
Yeah.
developable land right in our downtown? How are we looking at this? What are we doing? That's just my input on it, and I'll leave it to you guys as the planners for our town to let us know what we should be doing. Just my thoughts.
Happy to respond. Number one, the 40R concept was an MAPC recommendation. So there you have it. My department, whether we agree or disagree doesn't matter. That's the priority that they chose, and this, and this committee has taken as its number one priority. So we're going to give it a good look and see what we can come up with. As far as the density, first of all, the MBTA requirements, that came up long after we started this project. This was just like halfway through and they throw it on top of everything else. So we're saying, okay, well, we have to address this, right? And we agree that the downtown area should be a little denser than the rest of the community. And I also know that we were dealing with inclusionary zoning a couple of years ago, we put on hold, and changing the density of residential development was also in C1 and general residential 5, especially in those two zones. So yeah, so now that we have the MBTA communities and a certain radius of that, and now the 40R is in there, I want to take care of everything as quick as I can, but not the 40R. Treat that as a totally separate project. Everything else, MBTA density, housing and all of that, we can deal with if we develop inclusionary zoning and all of that. Change the zones. Right now we have multifamily allowed up to 1 unit per 1,000 square feet in C1 and general residential 5. It's not allowed by right. We do have it allowed by right in the downtown district, up to 20 units per acre. And if they want more than that, they can go get a special permit. So I'd like to give a certain amount by right and then go for special permits over that and above. And that's that type of concept that I think we'll see in the near future. And the 40R doesn't have to be 100 different parcels. It can be a very small area within this. If we can create a very small redevelopment type section of the town that we want to focus the 40R on, there are a number of things we can do with it. We don't have to go with all exactly what MAPC came up with, or maybe we do. It's up to the council to vote on things and decide. But you're right. We do need people on the outside that are experts in that field to really come in and give us some options and alternatives of the way to approach this, for sure. That's why we're not taking that on first, but we will be doing the research and getting some people in to talk with this soon.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep, good, thank you.
Councilor Frangillo.
Yeah, thank you. So a whole bunch has been said, and I've just sort of been writing down notes. I don't want to belabor the shared parking. I do think it's misleading to think that shared parking is just about selling off a certain number of our spaces to a developer. The State Department around community development and housing recommends the Urban Land Institute's shared parking policies, which are really just about having permit processes that allow people to buy in to the same spaces as opposed to giving them away to a developer. So there's a lot to do that stops short of chopping off part of our public parking. Yes, the priority was to support businesses, and I think it's already been touched upon, and I appreciate those who have touched upon it, including Bruce and Brian. The best way to support our businesses is by ensuring that there are residents nearby, within walking distance, that use them on a regular basis, both to provide them customers and to make sure that it's developable property, where the tenants who are looking to invest in a new property are getting enough income. And even then, I would say that it's we had a survey that we know was very biased toward wealthier and more likely to be homeowners than the average person in Franklin. So already they were going to be against new housing, and yet 71% of those who had an opinion said that they did support and they thought it was important to provide a range of housing types and sizes. And I think that's consistent with what we're hearing. I was just at Senior Center office hours, and there was the largest office hours we've had yet, a line of seniors saying that they can't find housing that meets their price point, that they want to stay in Franklin, but they can't find housing that meets the price point. What is going to be housing that meets the price point? It's going to be smaller units near transit, within walking distance, and transit of basic needs. So I do think housing, is both supported and supports our businesses. Underground parking spaces. MAPC just did a study. They say that the average underground parking space costs $31,000 per space to build. If we want to do that, it's either cost prohibitive for anyone to come in and invest in our downtown properties if we make them do underground parking, or it gets baked into the rents, and then we don't have the cheap, affordable housing for our residents to move into. They're going to just be the luxury condos. We need to stop forcing our downtown properties to create new parking. We have plenty of parking around. Why 40R? The reason for 40R, and I am also okay with stopping short of that, but the reason was because we get money from the state. If we know that we want a walkable downtown, we know that we want more housing options downtown, why not make sure that we do so in a way that the state is going to reward and just give us money to improve our streetscape, to improve our amenities, to make sure that we're maintaining those properties well, to do facade improvements are what those money can be used for. So that's why we would meet 40R. There was a note about people being scared of housing. I think the main reason that people in Franklin are scared of new housing is because all we've done, we've restricted all types of housing except for single-family homes in large apartment complexes. And if all you allow is large apartment complexes, then yeah, new housing is scary because it's a quick jump to a lot more units than were otherwise in your backyard. What we're talking about here is incremental density. These are duplexes. These are accessory dwelling units. These are triplexes, maybe 4. I think that residents would be shocked to realize how many of these are around them all throughout our downtown. Are these middle housing types of properties that are legal to build now. And we've made it so that the only things that you're allowed to build are these large apartment complexes. So I don't think density has to be scary. It's just as scary now under current zoning, and that's why we're making these changes. Why do we do this around our downtown? This is my last point. Why are we focused on our downtown? Because we know that has the most return on our investment. I just got a study today that said homes near transit appreciate, now this is a national study, they appreciate anywhere from 4 to 24% faster than other types, than properties away from transit. If we want to allow new spaces to come in, and we want to make sure that we all benefit, we get to put it into our schools, and our parks, and our police, and our fire, then it makes sense to put those units into our downtown where people can get to their basic needs, and we all get the benefits of it. think that addressed everything that's come up so far. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Frangillo. Councilor Sheridan, do you have anything, any questions? Councilor Jones?
Just a quick comment. Brian, great job on all the hard work that you've done. Love as well. You guys have put so much hard work into this. This is one of many discussions that we've had over the years from the planning board level as well as the EDC level in regards to what we should ultimately do as a town in regards to the type of zoning that we have downtown. First of all, I'm going to reiterate a few points. One, much of the area downtown is privately owned. And for the town to step in and try and negotiate just about anything, it's really not in our best interest to get into those kind of negotiations with private property owners for one simple reason. We as a town community have enough of our own public parking to meet most of our needs. So there's really no need to get into negotiations. Rockland Trust, I'm going to bring up Rockland Trust. They're not even from Franklin. No insult to Rockland Trust, but they're not even from Franklin. You know, they're not the Ben Franklin that the bank used to be. So their vested interest isn't really in Franklin. It's just whatever the bank feels like doing. And they have the majority of the parking spaces in the center of town that could be better purposed if they were respent to better serve the needs of the downtown. But I don't think Rockland's in a position, or let alone wants to talk about something like that, which is fine. That's their right. They have the right. The private companies, private businesses have the right to make their own decisions. It's not our job to go twisting anyone's arm when it comes to parking. But when it comes to the development, I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is that the town of Franklin has had a very good reputation for being able to best decide what we feel is the best decision for the downtown, in lieu of allowing the state or other entities coming in and saying, hey, we think you should do this, and if you do it, we're going to hang this little carrot over your head that says, we're going to give you money if you do this and do things our way. Well, this is our town. We should be the ones that are making that decision, which is why, Brian, I appreciate your comment in regards to stopping short and to just jumping right into the 40R and just holding back a little bit to first kind of take a big picture look and say to ourselves, what do we think as a community would be best suited for this area? And if the 40R just happens to be the one that works great, we'll do that. But I think we should make that decision first and kind of really evaluate things on our end first before just jumping into some statewide plan on something. And Beth, you're right. I'm sure there's got to be something that we can look at from a big picture perspective and say, okay, maybe we can do this. Maybe this will work. Maybe smaller densities will work. But the town has a great reputation for being able to meet the needs of the community as a whole. And I think, and Brian, your department have done such a great job over the years coming up with ideas and thoughts on what we should meet. Everything from business zones to all the setbacks and all the other rules we put in place for the downtown. And honestly, if the business owners want to build, great. But let me tell you something. I've talked to many of the business owners downtown, and last time I checked, many of them aren't really, they're just not even really willing or able to just simply invest a ridiculous amount of money into their buildings in order to try to meet some kind of hope and goal that we have. Because ultimately, they're the decision makers. They hold the dollars, they own the properties. If they want to develop it, great. On my end, if it's town of Franklin, I'm more than willing to help out anybody who wants to invest money into their property. But they hold the cards, they own the property. We are restricted to what we can do.
Thank you, Councilor Jones.
That was a little longer than just a normal discussion.
Beth?
Just one quick final comment. Just, Glenn, you said it great. We do have the ability in our community to meet what we need to do, and we need to meet the MBTA community's requirements. There's no doubt about that, and we will meet it somehow. And Kobe, we are afraid of housing, large-scale housing, and, I think that's evident with the 170 new units that have been permitted between right here, across the street, from, what's the address there? 230 East Central Street, down to, was it 19 Dean Ave? 170 new units, that's why people are afraid of housing. But we can make that work. We can make our community what we want it to be, and we'll find a way to do it. And I think some of the small things that you're talking about, inclusionary zoning, accessory dwelling units, looking small is great. And having to meet the MBTA communities, we'll find a way to meet it, and we'll make it work for our community.
Thank you, Beth. So I wanted to thank Brian and Amy for this memo and all the work and the law that's in here about the accessory dwelling is very interesting. So, I agree that we need to work small. And so, we have our inclusionary zoning that is on here for fall, of this fall. And then the accessory dwelling units, right, is fall and winter. I think if we go for the 40R, we bring somebody in for that, is there any way that we could work on commercial one, mixed use by right? I don't think that's by right in the commercial one zone. That was one of the things, one of the recommendations. And also,
So that would be part of the 40R overlay, no?
right. So if we hold off on the 40R overlay, maybe we could work on that. And the multifamily by right and the definition of the multifamily, I know that was one of the recommendations, and also helps just squeeze the density just a little bit, and maybe that would be enough. So, but that's your job to figure that out.
So to do those under number 2.
Number 2,
Is that, right, to do those other pieces.
the downtown housing density.
The multifamily and the mixed use, to do that while we're looking at downtown.
Is that what you meant, Brian?
Number 2 is looking at the underlying zoning in all of these districts. 40R is an overlay district. So I would like to get the inclusionary zoning, housing density, all of those issues
Okay.
as quickly as, as reasonable time as possible. Now we get into the 40R, it is an overlay.
Okay.
And we can do something different or an addition in those areas.
All right. So that would include the multifamily.
To me, multifamily and mixed use are part of looking at downtown housing density.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. But not in the commercial one zone?
We need to address multifamily in the commercial one, the
Mhm.
GR5, the downtown commercial, maybe even the single-family residential 4. I mean, we might want to change something there too. So we're going to look at all of those issues.
Okay.
Each of the areas will require its own requirements,
Right.
as it has now. We might want to tweak some of them. We want to make major changes in others. We'll see how it goes. We'll be all in the same project.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm sorry that I misunderstood that. Jamie?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee. I just want to remind everybody on 40R, there's another aspect to this, which is also about the facade and about the look and feel and the location of these things. 40R is not just simply dealing with density or the topics that are on the minds of people today, on social media or whatever. It's a much more extensive process. And as we've talked about before, we're much more all-encompassing of all the issues around housing. It's about the look and feel of a building. It's not just the height. It's very, very complicated. And so that's one of the reasons why we propose to put that priority a little further along, because there is going to have to be a lot more time and attention paid to all of the details into a 40R. The other thing I would mention on 40R really quickly is that 40Rs can also be used, to Bruce's point earlier. If there was a project that came to the town that we thought might be a good candidate for a 40R, the town is in the driver's seat to be able to work with a developer on something like a Depot Plaza, where you can start to work on these issues on an individualized basis. It doesn't necessarily have to be a whole overlay that is more global, and that we have to make the process as extensive as what some are bringing it out to be. So that's one of the reasons why we proposed it a little later, was so some of these other issues that have been brought up, we can hopefully check off those goals and check off those that progress, and allow for a more extensive conversation on 40 hours, especially as you go into the master planning process next spring and summer, it kind of lends itself to a nice bridge right into that. Finally, I'll just close with one other quick comment, Madam Chair, on the parking lots. I just want to remind everybody, the town only owns one parking lot, really. Okay, the town does not own Ferraras. In terms of shared parking, we do not own the Ferraras lot. The town does not own the library lot, which is owned by Dean College. I believe Greg mentioned that a little while ago. We cannot consider the Davis Thayer parking spaces at all as long-term solutions to anything, because that's going to have a whole separate process that's going to start later this fall in terms of what the future of Davis Thayer will be. So really, in terms of shared parking with the municipal lots, you're really down to one lot, which is Depot, which is 68 spaces. And I know we're going to talk about that in a minute, a little bit deeper. But even with the approved 16 units at 19 Dean Ave, and to Beth's point earlier of other buildings that may tap into that, the town may find itself that you have no more parking, as Brian pointed out earlier, for customers, consumers, merchants, employees, commuters, or anybody else, because you've just given a license to those spaces for permanent residential restrictions for probably in perpetuity. And that was exactly the complexity around this, especially around public procurement of what's the greatest and highest best use of that asset. If the town ever were to sell off that property or to lease it out or lease out those spaces in the future, you have to be very, very careful to make sure that that public asset, which is a taxpayer-owned property, is bringing the greatest return on investment back to the taxpayer on that. And that may not be, it could be, but it may not be just having parking passes or, well, there's a development down the street, first come, first serve, a developer gets it. That is something that I think the town has to very seriously consider, those 68 spaces and what they're going to use them on and whether or not they really are used for residential. The irony of this is the entity that needs the money is the MBTA, which has a lot right below ours, which has double the amount of spaces, and they're not used at all. The MBTA would probably benefit greatly today from a shared use parking policy in some sort of way, because they probably could use the revenue given their financial trouble. So I appreciate the opportunity to close that out, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Okay, so I guess we have a good timeline. We have everybody's given their opinions, and I look forward to our next meeting, which we don't have. Will be fall sometime maybe in October, Jamie?
Take them one at a time, Madam Chair. Let's get through the parking first, and then we'll see.
We're going to do parking first. Okay, all right. He doesn't want to schedule a steering plus meeting.
I'm guessing, to be honest, I'm probably guessing in November at this point. Because there's a couple other things in October. So I'm guessing the inclusionary density MBTA communities priority number 2. Not, by the way, with all the other add-ons that were just added in, some of the baseline stuff that we had talked about in the housing production plan, we'd be able to take up hopefully in November.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. And with that, I think we will move on to number 2 on the agenda. And if the EDC Plus group does not want to continue here tonight with us, you're okay to leave.
Move to the audience if
you can move to the audience if you want. You can stay up here. You can stay online if you want, Bruce.
Thank you.
No, I was just going to try to get a hold of you. I got a prior commitment. I got to leave right now. Anyway.
Okay.
I figured we'd be done right now. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
We're going to let everybody sit down. Okay, so our second item on the agenda is the downtown parking lot proposal. I know the town staff has done a lot of work on this, and there's a lot of really good things here. So, Jamie, do you want to start us off?
Sure, thanks, Madam Chair. Alicia, I assume the proposed district map is on the screen or could be put on the screen?
It's on the screen,
for those,
yeah.
Awesome, thanks. That's the current, I believe.
Oh.
And then I know for the audience at home, I I mean, that are in the chamber. I know there's some maps up for
Yep.
reference point too. So I'm just going to go through. I'm just going to go through as quickly as I can, Madam Chair, the current versus proposed. I'm going to try to do the best I can to synthesize the changes as easy as possible for the folks at home that are listening and the folks that are on Zoom with me that are listening.
It's okay if you have if we have a copy of the map in front of us, but I don't know if it will be easy for everyone else. But go ahead, Jamie.
Sure. So in terms of the current, folks may recall that back in, I believe it was 2016 and 17, the town went through and created a map after the downtown revitalization infrastructure project was complete. There were some tweaks in 2018, but very minor. So this is somewhat of a substantial change, and I think it's fairly direct in terms of where the change, where the biggest change, proposed change is. For folks that are looking at the current map versus today, the red district, no parking. There are no changes proposed as outlined in my memo. The parking that's in red were determined either by public safety, town engineers, or others to reflect either too narrow of roads, a turn radius, emergency personnel vehicles, and a variety of other criteria. We specifically put on there those red zones for no parking. I should note, if no color exists anywhere, then there are no parking regulations to follow. You can park freely on those streets, any residents. So there's no changes to the red area,
Jamie, can I interrupt you for a second?
Sure.
I just wanted to let people know that the big maps there on the, if you want to look at the big maps in the.
In the chamber?
They're like passing the papers back and forth, but I'm like, you can look at the big map. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jamie.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. The second area we are proposing changes is on residential streets, which on the current map, there are both a blue category and a purple category. And the only difference really there is between the parking regulations between 8 and 2 p.m. or 8 and noon. We're proposing to merge both the purple and the blue into one color blue, which is 2-hour parking from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. And again, those are on residential streets. And over the last 4 or 5 years, 6 years rather, since this map, I have not heard a tremendous amount of concerns relative to the distinction between those two areas. And I think most people seem to be hopefully happy with those residential streets. So again, the purple would end up becoming a blue area, which would be 8 to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday. The largest area on here, the two next sections are the ones of most substance. Number one is, as the council knows, earlier this year, there was a first reading of a proposed downtown business corridor on both Main Street and East Central Street. Through the years, we've heard a lot of concerns from many business owners about cars parking for far too long, notably over the weekends, but even overnight on those spaces, and that those spaces were to be opened up on a greater rotation for business commerce. And so what we're proposing is to basically amend what the council had already done one reading on, and propose 1-hour parking on just Main Street and East Central Street, those strips in orange, which would be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday, with no overnight parking between the hours of midnight and 6 a.m. One of the reasons for this, there's multiple, and I'm certainly not under any delusion of grandeur that many people are probably a little surprised by the 1-hour proposal. But one of the reasons for it is that the staff had looked at the parking lots, which we'll get to in a minute, and having hours in those parking lots from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Is the jurisdiction there. And there was a sense on the staff to do the best we could. We know that it may not be perfect, but to do the best we could to try to keep the time zones as consistent as possible. And we also believe that the 1-hour parking will create, on those two small zones on Main Street and East Central Street, will create a far greater rotation of automobiles going in and out for basic trips to those businesses. The next proposed change on the map is something that is new, which is regarding the parking lots. As many of you probably know, in the town bylaw under the police section of fees in section 82 in the town code, the depot and Ferrara's parking lots in particular are completely scripted into town code as being delineated for commuter only and merchant space only, okay, on the current map. So right now, the general public really does not have much access to those lots unless it's later at night. And obviously during the pandemic, to put it mildly, we're not selling any spaces. Commuting has completely changed, and we have not had any merchant spaces be purchased over the last 2.5 years. And quite honestly, you know, I think it's about time anyways. I was here in 2016 and 17 when we went through these downtown parking revisions. And there was oftentimes, because there was far greater demand for those spaces from both commuters and maybe, I wouldn't say merchants, but at least one merchant. But for merchants, there was oftentimes a heavy debate around how you could splice up those spaces to fulfill both needs. And through the incredible research of the Franklin Police Department and Alicia, Aline in my office, they went out and did some research on some kiosks, which later in my memo I outlined. We are proposing to install pay kiosks in the Depot Street and the Ferrara's parking lots to be able to allow and to open up all of those spaces on a first come, first served basis for anybody. So in other words, commuters can tap into that if they get there. The first train leaves at 5:15. It's kind of an awkward time, so we started with 6, figuring you're not commuting to Boston from 5:15 to 6 and back in that amount of time, so you're still gonna have to buy a space. But it could be, those lots could be used for merchants, could be used for employees, could be used for customers. Anybody who wants to park there for the full day would have that ability on a first come, first served basis. So that opens up essentially 89 parking spaces in both lots to be used on a daily basis. Those lots would be payment required between 6A and 6P. And then after hours, after 6 p.m., between 6 p.m. and midnight, the spaces in Depot and Ferrara's would be completely free. For those that often reference to me that they feel like they can't park in Ferrara's lot, there are good reasons for that, right? Because all of the signs there are dedicated towards merchant spaces or commuter spaces, because that's what's in the town bylaw. Alicia did a great job a moment ago as I was talking. She's trying to read my mind and doing a great job of it. She put up a bylaw where we did propose eliminating that language in that town code in the police section 82 bylaw. And at least for a placeholder, I offered in there the suggestion that the town administrator shall set the rates. As I outlined in my memo, right now, as you can see, might be crossed out because of track changes. For a merchant or a commuter, it's $180 a quarter or $720 a year, which ultimately comes out to $3 a day. The MBTA parking lot just below Depot Street is at $6 a day. And many of you were on the council when we upped that rate from $2 a day to $3 a day a few years ago. I did put in the memo the concept of at least maintaining the $3 a day. Obviously, I would think that would be up discussion for many people in the community as well as the EDC, but I'm just giving you the background information and at least where we are right now. The library and Davis Thayer lots, as I mentioned, Davis Thayer will be starting probably in a couple months at some point later this fall on a strategy for reuse and what that process will look like. But for the time being, we need to add on there no overnight parking in the Davis Thayer lot to allow the police to enforce that the Davis Thayer school, those spots over there, don't continually just be parked up with people overnight. I want to respect, and I do think that this is something that the council and the EDC have to make sure that we keep our eyes on. We can be fair during the day and let people park in Davis there for downtown harvest festivals, other civic events. We obviously know a lot of kids and families go down there and use the ball fields, and we want to encourage that. But we can't just have people just treating those as like parking spaces forever, because ultimately the long term will be, in all likelihood, that something else will happen with that property. And so we're going to maintain a strict enforcement on no overnight parking within the Davis Thayer lot. The library lot, as I just mentioned, we are putting that on here. It is leased through Dean College on a long-term lease. But for those of you that go to the library, you know that those spaces are generally filled with library patrons morning, noon, and night, because our library does a phenomenal job with incredible programs and has great offerings. And also that lot has been very beneficial for a lot of the events on the town common and such. We've never, to my knowledge, had a problem with commuters in that lot or any other uses. And so we feel at least maintaining a no overnight parking policy on the library lot until we see some other problem arise. That will be the proposed policy before y'all tonight. And then I think there might be a couple of other nuts and bolts to add in here. Number one, the Flowbird kiosks are on a massive wait. Would take about, if approved and supported by the council, it would take about a 4-month lead time to order them, which would be in the middle of next winter. And so it's going to take us a while to replace all of the signage, take down, again, if approved, to take down all the commuter and merchant specific signs and be able to put up new signs. As I said in my memo, it'll take the DPW about 4 to 8 weeks to get all of those redone and reinstalled. And I think, Madam Chair, that probably covers most of the points. Just kind of reading through my memo here. Oh, and then also on the agenda, as you can see, we also brought back the parking fines that had been proposed and put on hold for this longer debate. The staff recommendation is to simply go forward with the incredible research that Lieutenant Riley did. And I think the proposed increases in the traffic violations are modest. I think the reality is that any fee or any fine at $10 or $15 probably is not much of a deterrent to anybody. And I just want to note one more thing on traffic enforcement on tickets. During the pandemic and up until now, and really, I would probably foresee it for a little while longer until we get some sort of consensus on the downtown lot. Our former parking clerk, as I think the chief had mentioned at a recent meeting or multiple meetings, did leave the department a couple of years ago. And really, we have not really seen any need to have any major traffic enforcement in either the lots or on Main Street. But as the pandemic has kind of subsided to some degree and we're moving on and commuting and people are reevaluating and restructuring their lives, we do think at some point parking enforcement will be needed due to the demand in downtown Franklin. That being said, the idea that somehow we're like the city of Boston with this slew of parking clerks walking around ticketing people is just not true. And so even though these parking restrictions and these proposals are there, it doesn't necessarily mean that after 1 hour, there's a group of people waiting at your car to give you a ticket. I think to some degree, parking in downtown is kind of like speeding. When you have 2 hours, most people probably stay 2.5, a little longer than that. I haven't heard of very many people getting ticketed in downtown Franklin recently. I'm sure the chief has some numbers on that, but I don't think it's overwhelming. It's not our goal to be heavily enforced, at least at this stature, because we do believe we have a lot of parking in downtown Franklin. But I'll close out by saying that the idea behind the 1 hour on Main and East Central is at least generally seen as something to get a greater rotation of traffic in those spaces. Most of the businesses that are there are probably options for quick stops. We understand there are a few that may not be. But with opening up the parking lots, we think that Ferraris and Depot will provide a lot of other additional customer parking for people that do want to stay in downtown for 3 or 4 hours, that do have a longer plan to hang out in downtown. At least those 2 lots will be wide open for people to use. I think that covers mainly most of the high points, Madam Chair. Obviously, I'm sure there'll be a lot of feedback and comments, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jamie. There's also, we added some handicap spaces as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
We did add in the Depot Street lot, the proposed to add 2 more handicap spaces up on the top level of the lot, closest to Dean Bank, which would also be closest to the Depot Street roadway, as well as Dean Ave.
Right. And just to clarify, so the Depot Street and Ferraris that will have kiosks eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't mention weekend parking?
Well, Sundays, I think most cities and towns have free parking on Sundays. We've left that intact. It's just good business practice. I've never been anywhere where they charge you, I don't think, parking or even have restrictions on Sundays. And then on Saturdays, the downtown lots would be available, and Ferraris would be available, I would assume, for free parking as well. We hadn't really made it that far. We were focusing on Main Street and East Central Street, but I think Saturdays and Sundays would seem like good opportunities to have free parking.
Okay, yes.
In both lots, I should say.
Good, I like that. That's really good. I think it would be nice to be able to remove the signs so that people will already be able to start to park there, so they know that there's parking there. If the DPW director could, we could fit that in somehow, just to remove the signs
Give me a
that
screwdriver.
that. And once we pass this, I guess is what we have to do, right? We have to change the bylaw first. Instead of waiting, so people feel better, that they don't want to break the law, right? They want to be able to go park there and not feel like the chief is going to come and yell at them. He's actually in the audience, so. And then
I don't think he'd yell at him. He'd just give him a ticket.
And the fees, I like the fees. I think thank you, Lieutenant Riley, for this. I know you and Chief Lynch did a lot of work on this, and it's nice to have the handicap parking fee raised. So I think that's a great idea. The unauthorized parking, though, Jamie, is that just a no parking?
I'll let the chief
unauthorized
answer that
parking
one.
fee?
Just so I don't. I think I screwed it up the last time, so I'll let the chief answer that one.
Lieutenant Riley, could you answer that question
Or
for
Lieutenant
me?
Riley, whoever's in there.
At the bottom of the fines, there's unauthorized parking. Is that a no? Is that a no park? Is somebody parking in a no parking area?
Good evening, everybody. Lieutenant Riley. I believe what happens with unauthorized parking is it basically covers all that's not listed on the list there. It's a catch-all to a unique situation that may not be. We couldn't put every violation on this ticket book.
Okay.
So I think we use that caveat as a catch-all to be able to recognize it.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure everybody knows that. So, thank you for the clarification. Does anybody want to have a quick statement, and then we're going to go to the audience since these people are waiting. You want to go to the audience first?
Yes.
All right, let's go to the audience first. Does anyone want to come up to the microphone and ask a question or have a statement? We have one here, and then Gary, you're next. Okay? Yeah, we're going to time it, okay?
Hi.
We're going to time it, so.
Oh.
Name and address, and
Let me know when.
you got the timer?
Yes.
You're good to go.
Here.
That's too noisy.
Tell
Sorry.
me when, Glenn. Am I
So
good?
you start now.
All right. Beth Whirling, 164 Main Street, downtown resident. Just a comment on the Main Street Downtown Business Corridor proposal. I'm asking that we reconsider this to present a 2-hour minimum. My main comment is on letter B. The parking is free and intended to incubate a greater rotation of cars to do basic errands and stops. Examples: post office, bank, shopping, lunch, coffee, breakfast, drop off. Most travel during downtown during the daytime or for short errands. I'm curious how that was determined. For me, short errands, when I go downtown to many of the places, Birchwood, Escape into Fiction, you know, there's hair salons where I get my hair done, Teddy Gallagher's, there's Pisani Shoes, Valley Jewelers, Greco Design, nail salons. As a woman, I can tell you, going to many of these locations, especially the ones for nails, my hair, and I don't know how many times my husband and I go to Teddy Gallagher's for dinner. There's no way I go in there or for lunch for 1 hour, okay? There's multiple times for 2 hours or more. And I understand you're opening up the longer lots. Where's the signage that's going to be posted around downtown? I haven't heard any discussion about signage and how to point people to get there. You don't go out for breakfast at Birchwood for an hour. All right, you don't take your family out to many of these locations for an hour. I'm pleased to say I was walking downtown this weekend. Saw lots of families out with their cars parked, with strollers getting out. They're using the downtown for many things other than just going for quick errands. They're taking their family downtown. That's what we've been looking for. We want our families downtown. They're not people that live downtown. They're coming from other areas of downtown, driving to our downtown and taking their families out for an afternoon or a morning. So I'm hoping we'll reconsider to support our downtown and our businesses, because that's what we're doing. Franklin for all, that's what we're looking for. That's why we're here. 2 hours, please.
Thank you.
Gary McIntosh, 24 East Street. One of the things I think that has gotten lost in all of the discussion is when we originally met at the beginning of the year was to talk about Dean College parking in the residential areas. And we really haven't discussed that this evening. And Dean's back at college, and they're back parking. And, you know, I used to be one young once too, and used to like to have a good time. And the houses in our area don't have a lot of setback from the street. So when 4 car doors close and the remote, you know, lock beeps at 11 o'clock at night, it's disruptive. And they shouldn't be parking there in the first place. One question I had on the memo, Jamie's memo, number 2, residential parking. It talks about the blue section has residential parking from 8 to 2, Monday through Friday, to prevent daytime commuters, etc. It's not residential parking. Anybody can park there. There's a 2-hour parking limit. And the confusion in that wording, it sounds like residents can park there from 8 to 2. And that's not what it is. It's a 2-hour limit Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. You've got a 2-hour parking limit in the residential neighborhoods. So I just thought we'd clarify that. On the fines, I think you all know at the beginning of the year I was in favor of higher fines, but I once learned when I had hair that the world doesn't revolve around me. And so I think Lieutenant Riley and the police department did a lot of research. So I'm certainly okay with trying the new fines. Here's a request. It looks like all of these changes are going to go into effect July 2023. And my request to this committee and the town council is, can we vote on putting the new fines in place now? And so that when the signage goes in place and the kiosks go in place and all the parking lots and all those changes happen, the fines will already be in place because they're parking there now. And so if we agree on the new fines, let's get them implemented now and not wait till July of 2023, because it feels like this is getting kicked down the road further and further and further. So that would be my request. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. Jamie, do you have can you answer that?
We can definitely, through you, Madam Chair, the fines can definitely be implemented at a much faster rate. It does, I believe, still require the 2 bylaw readings, so I think the earliest they'd be able to be put into effect would probably be in November, December at best case scenario, but they can be bumped up earlier than than the July 1st. The July 1st is an estimated date just based on the amount of time to order kiosks, to take down the old signs, to bring up new signs, and to install the infrastructure in ground that has thawed.
Okay, thank you. Another hand?
Dawn Porthouse, 22 East Central. I'm a business owner in downtown Franklin. I own the Liberty Tax. I think it should be 2 hours. A lot of my customers during tax season is when I'm the busiest, will wait over an hour for me. And a lot of them go to Birchwood now, and they go to Escape. So it's been great that, you know, we have that. My biggest problem is Dean students. I mean, they're there all day. And I know I drove Lieutenant Riley nuts over the last tax season trying to get them to move because they just stay there. And then when the snowplows can't come in, and I have had seniors in the middle of the road, they can't walk over the piles. It's just crazy. So I would vote for the 2-hour parking because it's been great seeing all the development downtown since I bought the business.
Thank you. Thank you for that. One of the things I just want to quickly say is that we met with the dean, the new dean president, and the new dean chancellor, who wants to create some kind of community meetings and get to know each other. So I hope all of us will participate in that. There was a hand. Yes, Pam.
Hi, Pam Young, 59 West Street. I also did speak with the new dean of Dean College. He's a very nice young man. I agree everything what Gary McIntosh has said, and I also just wanted to see if I could propose maybe just a few things for our neighborhood for the parking. I don't know if this can be done, but just wanted to propose it anyway. Seeing how the dean students are back and they are parking all over our streets, is there any way we could implement the the midnight to 6 a.m. no parking? I mean, I know at one time you have said to us that if you have families staying over, well, it doesn't matter anyway because they wouldn't be able to park in front of the home at that time. And also, my other proposed thing would be, I would rather see commuter parking put in the neighborhoods. We do live near the downtown, the train, and I'd rather see residents parking in front of my home because I know that they're gonna leave. They're not gonna stay there for 3 or 4 days, and they're not gonna, you know, wake me up at all hours of the night. Thank you.
Thank you. It's interesting. Yeah. Steve?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Stephen Piscini here on behalf of Piscini Shoe Store, 22 Main Street, with a merchant's perspective. My thunder has somewhat been stolen because I was going to say a number of the same things. However, I think what's also lost is that most of the businesses that were mentioned are owned by local people. You know, people that live in town, they make their livelihood in town, they've raised families in town, they pay taxes here, they vote here. And I think that's important because that's a sense of community. And where, on the one hand, you may say, okay, thank you very much for all of the above, I think this reduction from the 2-hour to 1-hour policy may actually hurt that sense of community. And I'll just give a quick example of something that happens, you know, quite frequently. Let's say there's a mother with 2 small children, and she says, okay, kids, let's go downtown, get haircuts, and let's get shoes. So you bring the kids, they park, they go into maybe Patty's Nail It, they have the kids with the haircuts, they come over to the shoe store. By the time, you know, the kids get measured, fitted, they race around, then they decide, is it the blue ones, the red ones, you know, the ones with Spider-Man, the dump truck on the side.
The lighted ones?
An hour goes by quickly, the lighted ones, exactly. And an hour goes by, you know, quickly. And I know Lisa Piano, I'm not sure if she's going to speak tonight, but she's done a great job over the years with the Franklin Downtown Partnership with the, you know, the Strawberry and the Harvest Festivals, which really have showcased a lot of the Franklin businesses. And I would say that, you know, what's the message that we're sending? You know, post-pandemic, we have had a new bookshop, we have a new restaurant. If anyone is considering a long-term lease or an investment in the downtown, Are we saying to people that we're only going to allow you to conduct your business within 1 hour? I mean, you know, is that going to force people to the outskirts? Worse, is it going to force them out of town? So again, I think the town really needs to consider the effect that a 1 hour parking, in a perfect world, sure, you can maybe go in and out and do your things, but if you want to, you know, and the other thing, I guess, to wrap up, I don't want to go on, but, you know, with the high prices of fuel today, and where in all other aspects of our lives, we're trying to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels. If someone is unable to complete their business one day, you know, in my simple example, okay, maybe today is haircut day, and they have to drive back. Tomorrow is shoe day, and they have to drive back. You know, tomorrow may be dance and piano lessons, and they drive back. You know, tomorrow may be lunch at Gallagher's and browsing in the bookstore. So I think, and frankly, I don't really see a big need. You know, this isn't downtown Boston where people are circling block after block waiting for a space. Most days from 9 to 5 downtown, you can find parking. You know, maybe not right in front of the store you want to go, but within a short walk. So anyway, I appreciate being given the opportunity to express my views. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Is there anyone else? Sam?
Sam Williams, 28 Queen Street. I just had maybe one suggestion for specifically your neighborhood, is the idea of implementing a residential permit parking like they do in Boston neighborhoods. So they could have parking, like residents could park overnight, but then you wouldn't have the Dean College kids. I don't know, might be an easy way to get that done.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? Lisa?
It's the car wash. They got a band playing next door.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. No, it's the car
There's
wash.
music coming in the window.
Yeah,
Yeah, we don't know where it's coming from.
When the car wash closes, the band sets up over there. That's awesome.
Oh, it's because I stood
It's
up.
a band practicing.
Lisa Piana, 6 Matthew Drive, the Executive Director of the Franklin Downtown Partnership. Here to represent the partnership and the many downtown businesses. And Steve stole my thunder because he said it so eloquently, and I love that it's from a business owner, because I walked around and I talked to probably about a dozen business owners this past week, and a couple things. I think most of them agree with the no overnight parking. We think that's going to help with you know, some of the students maybe parking overnight. So I think most are in favor of that. I don't ever like to say everybody or all my members. We have like 375 members now. So I say, you know, most of the downtown businesses I talk to. There are pockets of areas that have chronic offenders of people parking. And talking to the few business owners that have that issue, I know Liberty Tax just mentioned she's one of them. We think if there's more enforcement, that could take care of the situation. I think if there's more enforcement on a daily basis, that could really help with that. But I think the overnight parking will help with that. We're excited about the 2 downtown lots opening up. We think that's going to be a huge help. I'm not sure who's online, so I don't want to get into all the details, but I did talk to a couple businesses already that will take advantage of having their employees park there, and that's going to really help with the back lots, and then that'll help with East Central Street and Main Street, because it's a domino effect, as we all know.
Yes.
But the 1 hour parking, I have not heard from one person, one business owner, or any of the customers I ran into or residents who like that idea. They would like to keep the 2 hour. Some have suggested going from the 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. to extend that to maybe 3. But going to 6 is really too far, and hopefully some of the restaurants are online to talk about that. That will affect the restaurants. To use an example, as Stephen did, you know, if you're at the bookstore at 4 o'clock, and then you want to go over to Teddy's, you could come out with a ticket if you stay for over an hour in there. So a lot of decision-making isn't done ahead of time. Sometimes you're like, eating at the bakery for an hour with friends, and then you're like, oh, let me go check out, what they have in the frame shop, or let me go check out the new bookstore. And then all of a sudden, you're over that 1 hour very quickly, even over the 2 hour. So hopefully there's some other people online that want to talk further about some of the details, but I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience? I think, Alicia, there's someone online. I can't, is it Allie?
Mm-hmm.
Allie?
She says it on you.
Okay.
Allie.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi. Allie, Rayon 47 Summer Street. I'd like to speak up on behalf of anyone in town utilizing the town with disability. I do appreciate that 2 additional handicap spots were put at the depot parking lot. That is very much appreciated. What I'd like to point out in addition, though, is many people who have placards for handicap parking, someone such as myself, reasoning being inability to walk 200 feet or more without assistance. And so if someone parks in that lot, they may not be able to physically get to the majority of businesses on Main Street. Like, I know if I parked there, I would not be able to get myself from that parking lot even to the bookstore, right? Never mind the shoe shop or the bakery. So I'd like to propose a consideration for an increase of handicap parking, maybe even 1 spot right here or there, like actually on the main street, or some other lot that I maybe am unaware of, but a consideration for more of the population with disability for handicap parking, and also the accessibility that goes with handicap parking, where our sidewalks cut out, right? Or so if a car pulls up on a curb on that main street, can they even get out of the vehicle, or is the curb in the way, and things like that. So it increased awareness for that population as well. So thank you for hearing me on that.
Thank you, Ally. The 2 that are on the street, there are 2 on the street right now, I think, but
One in the bank. One in front of the bank and one in front of FPS.
FPS in the bank,
Right.
okay. Okay, and there's one on East Central, is that on the street?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe one.
Yeah, a new one.
Maybe another one.
A new one in the front.
But thank you, Ally. We'll definitely, I saw Administrator Helen writing things down, so this has been really good. Is there anyone else online? I saw her. Okay, what do you think, Alicia? Is that good?
I think they're all set.
Okay, I know, I saw her, you don't have to help me. I know you are, you're helping me. It's good, it's good.
Marie Crandall, 35 East Street. I know it's been said, and you said it's not feasible, but I want to say it one more time, as this gentleman did, residential parking only. The 2-hour parking that you have in our neighborhood, the Dean kids have it down pat. They know it's 2 hours, they run up, they move their car. So you're not getting any spaces in front of your house, because when they move, the other one that was up here will move down there. They've got it down pat. Or they'll move from in front of our house to in front of our son's house or to Gary's house. So there's always those cars there. They're just different cars.
Mm-hmm.
If it was residential parking, it would really help tremendously. My son and daughter-in-law can't even park in front of their house. They're in our driveway. We live across the street from them. They park in our house to unload their groceries. It's just, we're just begging for residential parking.
I was going to ask Lieutenant Riley, did you look up residential parking only in your, did you do any research on that?
I think we looked at downtowns with colleges and a similar sized downtown business district when we did our comparables.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Did they have any residential only areas?
not that I was aware of.
Okay. All right. Well. That. Okay, so is everyone, we have all of our comments from the outside? Yeah? Councilor Sheridan, do you have any comments?
Yes, I'd like, for the public parking, I hope they have those nice signs, because whenever I go to a new place, I always look for those blue signs, and they follow them to the public parking, so it's easy to find, easy to know.
A big blue P,
Yeah, you
right?
you come into the area, you see it, and then you kind of follow it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else on any of the,
Not at this time.
okay. Councilor Frangillo?
Sure, yeah, thank you. Appreciate all of this. I mean, this is very comprehensive, and I think is definitely a step in the right direction. I just listed out my thoughts, so apologies if they're in a strange order. One is, while I appreciate this process, which is really just beginning, because even if we get to something by the end of today, we still need 2 more hearings with the town council to get to anything. That's a very laborious process to something that I think should be much more responsive to current needs. And I would love to, I love that we've empowered the town administrator to change the rates of the municipal lots. So as demand, in response to demand, he can change the rates. I would love to also empower him to change times and hours as well. I mean, this is how it's typically done in a sort of legislative, executive way. We give them a charge, we give them the outlines, maybe guidelines, but we allow the person who who has the flexibility to be much more responsive to real-time needs. We empower them to make those changes as opposed to having to do 3 months of public hearings when we want to raise a rate $1 an hour. So I hope that we can consider such a bylaw. Okay, I love that our residents came, because I did think that was the missing piece of this was, and I don't have a great answer, but we didn't adjust the length of times. I was wondering if you could speak to that, Jamie, length of times on the side street. Why not make them later? And then I have thoughts, but I guess I would ask you first. We didn't address the overnight. Like right now it's free to park from 2 p.m. to 8 a.m. the next morning. Is that what that it's free and you can park as long as you want?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think all of this is great, and I would just go a step further. And I think Sam's idea, certainly the idea of MEPC, and what we keep talking about is a residential permit process that allows them to, we allow residents to stay overnight in all these places and everything. So it's we put on every sign, no overnight except with permit, and then we give out those permits and we can increase the rates if they're being used too much. I really hope that we consider that as the next step after this. Yeah, I'd love your thought on that. Sorry, I'll frame it as a question.
You saw my hand go up right away.
Yeah.
I gotta say, for the purpose of right now, I mean, we've litigated the parking permits issue. I know Lieutenant Riley and the chief are there. They can get up and speak eloquently about it, but it's just not needed. There's not that much demand. We're talking about a really small, isolated problem that I think I've been on the record many times, and I've talked to Pam and those neighbors. We've met with them many, many times. We've had the police out there collecting data. I know all of you on the EDC have driven around that neighborhood and that street a lot. The thing with no overnight parking is then you're clearing out all no overnight parking, including residents, and we do not have anywhere near the staffing capacity or the administrative ability to deal with residential parking passes. I think we're creating a much more substantial and larger problem than what we're actually intending. I think the unforeseen circumstances are far greater. We are not Boston and Cambridge and Somerville. We do not have that kind of demand on the side streets. We're not street sweeping all the time and dealing with tickets and things. And as the chief has said, I think for many, many years, you're just going to have to get a software package. There'll have to be training associated with all of it. You're going to have to hire more administrative staff to deal with it. Then the enforcement comes with it, and then you irritate and upset a lot of other residents who right now everything works fine except for that little area that the folks have brought up over on East Street and West Street and Mason Street, and some of the side streets that have some Dean College parking. I think the avenue right now is to try to take the offer of the new president and chancellor to create a neighborhood association, to try to work with the students and in the new leadership over there to try to come up with some other innovative ideas. I think as Chancellor Augustus has mentioned, he was a city manager in Worcester for 8 or 9 years, worked at Holy Cross. They have a lot of college students, issues in those residential neighborhoods. Maybe there's some additional ideas he can bring to the table. I would just hesitate to move forward on residential parking permits, where I think there's going to be a much bigger issues to solve than what we're actually trying to fix. That's just my response, at least to some of the questions. I'll wait, Madam Chair, till the end to address them. I've taken some notes down, as you said, some of the other points, but I just wanted to address the parking permit issue. Thanks.
Thank you, Jamie.
No, that's fair. Your points are very well taken. Albeit I think perhaps a little overstated. I mean, Natick has residential permit parking, Mansfield has residential permit parking. It's not unheard of, and you're getting revenue to help cover the expenses to deal with them. But again, the points well taken for the short term, and let's see how our relationship with Dean improves. Two other things that are missing here. One is and I think we've talked about it, to actually enforce some of these, not over enforce surely, but to actually make sure that we're enforcing beyond whatever time we set, as well as increased visibility, not only changing the signage in terms of clarity, but actually changing signage in terms of people coming on the street and knowing where to go. That needs to be a piece of this, right? It really, like, the piece isn't a lack of parking, it's not knowing where parking is. That's not going to be solved just by changing the policy. It's going to be solved by big signs off the street.
Okay.
Sorry. Do we have to come back to me? I had two other points. I can save them if someone else.
Let me go to Councilor Jones in case he has anything.
Just a couple of quick few things.
Yeah.
First off, as far as bylaw amendment 22-879 is concerned in regards to the fines that are listed here, I'm 100% behind them. Lieutenant, great work on this. I think the residents agree this is a great start. Like anything, it's a starting point. Hopefully it's effective. And with you, Councilor Hamlin, I agree on the handicap parking going to 150. Now, adding, just like the young lady said earlier, adding in the handicap extra spaces, that is, to me, that's awesome. I'm glad that we're adding in the additional handicap spaces. Like much as what has been said today, I think the one thing I have to comment on that I don't agree with, like most people don't, is the 1 hour parking. I mean, for the most part, it's almost like on average people will spend more than one, but typically not greater than two. I mean, a great example of something like that is I went to Fire and Ice for my daughter's birthday just last month, and I had to go to Berkeley Street and Newbury Street in Boston. I found a parking space on Newbury Street. I got a ticket to park there. I parked my car on Newbury Street, walked to Fire and Ice, My family of 8 had dinner, got our meals, and by the time I got back to my car, it was 1 hour and 55 minutes. So 2 hours seems like a reasonable amount of time, even in Boston. But 1 hour is definitely way too short, because the goal is to try to keep the parking moving. Other than that, just the mere fact that we are doing away with all the commuter spaces and opening up these parking lots to allow for an extended amount of parking is a great idea, but also along the lines of what Mr. Sheridan was saying is we need better signage. We really do. We need to be able to direct the customers into the spaces that, for all intents and purposes, will be considered extended parking spaces, so that they understand if they plan on staying at the bar, or they plan on staying at the Rome, or they plan on going shopping for an extended period of time, they at least know where to go. You know, they can say, all right, go down to Depot Plaza, park down there. There's plenty of parking spaces, but everything else seems pretty good to me, with the exception of trying to work with Dean College. Hopefully that works out, and increasing it to 2 hours. The one note I want to make to everybody, though, before I run out of time, is this is the EDC. We are going to go with whatever best recommendations come out of this, but this, of course, has to still go to full council, where this will have yet another set of discussions. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Jones. So I know a lot of people are worried about the 1 hour parking. And I'm kind of torn about it, but one of the things that we've never had before is we've never had these other parking lots open and available for people to park in. And that's for a longer term. So if I think to myself, I might go to get shoes and then go to the bookstore, I'm gonna park in the longer term place. I'm not gonna park in the 1 hour space. Maybe, I think, like, if you're gonna go get coffee from Birchwood, then you're gonna go through the 1 hour parking spot. If you're gonna go and have breakfast, you might go to somewhere else. But I understand it's a totally new concept for people to think about. And I'm not wedded to the 1 hour. I think, so I would be amendable to change it. I just think when we start to open up the parking spaces, people are gonna have a much better chance to actually be downtown and to realize that they can go there and it's open. And so that's, to me, is really exciting to have more handicap spaces. We have these 2 areas that will have kiosks, whether we still have some free parking. I think we have a little bit of everything for everybody, as well as Jamie said, we're gonna work on trying to work on enforcement now of these new fines. So I think we can move this on to the full council.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move the proposal with an amendment to the proposal that the proposed 1 hour period highlighted in the proposal for the Main Street and East Central Street be amended to be part of the 2 hour parking lot, not a 1 hour parking.
All right, so we have a motion on an amended proposal.
I think motion to amend first, right?
A motion to
Yep.
amend? Yeah, well, yeah.
I'll second that motion to amend to 2 hour. I also would defend Jamie's choice of 1 hour. The idea is that we have 2 different things: people who want to stay there a long time and making sure that we have increased turnover.
Right.
But I hear the point. Starting at 2 hour, I would second the motion to amend to 2 hours.
Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the amendment stands.
I have another motion to amend, if I may.
Go ahead.
Motion to amend the overnight parking fine to 50.
Where is that?
Not third to last.
All right, that was one of the things that we kept hearing, was
I
that
thought you said overnight.
you could take a whole bunch of and still be cheaper than the Dean pass.
Oh, it's 24.
And I think as currently stands, you could take 10 tickets. And if we're not relying on them being out every single night, perhaps stricter overnight fee. So motion to amend to 50 for overtime, overnight.
Just to clarify, you mean overtime? Because you said overnight, I thought.
No, it's all-night parking. when
All
restricted.
night parking, sorry.
Oh,
All night
all-night-
parking when restricted, yeah.
Right.
All-night parking when
When
restricted.
Right.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, do we have a discussion?
Yeah.
You want to discuss it? No. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 No.
Opposed? Oh, okay. So it's 3-1.
Can I make a further amendment?
Typically, you make all typically you make all your amendments in one.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Apologies.
Yep.
That's okay.
That's okay.
It's all right, we have 2 so far.
Yep.
So.
And this is less of a direct amendment, but I really would like us to agree to empower Jamie to empower the town administrator and town staff to change hours, rates, and times to meet the economic development interests of downtown Franklin.
I don't think we can make that decision at this level.
You know what, I'm gonna, Jamie just raised his hand, so we'll find out if we can do that. I personally think it would be a great idea if we could give him that, to be able to do that quickly, but let's see. Jamie?
So, through you, Madam Chair, I'm not sure I wanted it. I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, what Councilor Frangillo, I think, is mentioning, so there's nothing to respond to. I don't think there's a proposal in front of us that we would be amending.
Oh, okay.
There's
All right.
nothing.
So what Councilor Frangillo would essentially be saying, as opposed to making an amendment to something like on the map, I think we'd have to make some sort of declaration, either probably in town code,
Yeah.
Okay.
that
Right.
the town administrator shall have the authority, in consultation with the chief of police and the DPW director, to alter, parking rates, times, and hours within the downtown parking district.
Right.
It'd be
Okay.
something, I know I said that a little quick. I literally just made that up right now, based on Kobe's suggestion, but I think if you were gonna do that, it would have to be a separate bylaw added in.
Okay.
Which is still part of the discussion tonight and still okay to move on if the EDC so chooses. It's just not actually amending anything physical that's right here, right now. That would be a separate thing.
Yeah.
Right, got it. Thank you, Jamie. Counselor Jones, you have a comment about the amendment, about the non-amendment?
No, I can't because there's no.
Yeah, I know,
there's-
just joking.
Just as a discussion point, typically at a subcommittee level, we don't usually have the authorization to make any kind of proposals in regards to the town administrator's responsibilities. That's a full town council
Yeah, that's
discussion.
a different
We don't-
meeting.
Yeah, we can't talk
Yeah,
about it.
okay.
Can we encourage him to present it, while he presents these things, present that language, to draft and present that language?
Jamie?
When he brings these to the council?
Sorry, through you, Madam Chair, the EDC is certainly within its right now. It's not as if the issue that he's bringing up is clearly related to the item on the agenda. And the EDC could decide to either bring it back to another EDC meeting to discuss, or, as I think Councilor Frangillo might have just said, I'm sorry, I might have missed it a little bit, broken up.
Bring language to the council.
You could bring language to the council in a separate bylaw if the EDC chose.
Okay, thank you.
I would support that.
I have an amendment to the map.
We have another amendment, yes.
We add resident only to the East Street, West Street, Nason, and Church Street.
Well, we can't,
Wait.
Jamie.
Madam Chair, can I just want to take one amendment at a time. So I think Kobe made something, and if he's not going to talk any further, is that closed, Kobe?
Yeah, we have to close that amendment.
Okay.
Yes,
Or
closed?
not amendment, but whatever he's talking
Yeah,
about, and
I
then
mean,
move to Councilor Sheridan's amendment after
Do I have
that.
a second, and I don't, it's not a formal amendment because we don't have language in front of
Right.
us, but can we agree to encourage Jamie to present
Yes.
that language to the council?
I just think you should take a vote on that,
We
Councilor
should take a vote
Hamlin.
on,
Yeah.
it just seems kind of weird.
No, we,
Point of
it's,
order.
that's not, hold on, time out.
Take
As
point of
the-
order.
Hold on, as
What?
the clerk,
What?
let me clarify something. As part of our job as a subcommittee is to work and decide on things that are directly related to economic development and things that are specific to the amendments that are proposed to us. There's no specific proposal in front of us tonight that has any kind of recommendations into regards into giving the town administrator the authority to change fee rates in regards to anything that's proposed tonight. So, hold on, let me finish. But that's something he crossed out and said this could be a good idea. That
Okay.
we really should be careful, because that's an executive authority between, that he's given permission through full council.
We do this all the time. This is going to the council. We do this all the time. We say something, and we encourage him to go in front of the council and
Okay,
present
all right,
it.
you know what, let's let us move this maybe to another agenda somewhere down the road. Okay, and, let's get through this today. So, Councilor Sheridan has an amendment, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
To add residential parking to West Street, East Street, Nason, and Church. Resident only overnight.
I'm gonna go right to Jamie, because we've already, Jamie?
Through you, Madam Chair. Could Councilor Sheridan just reiterate exactly what
Just to
the
add
amendment
resident
is?
overnight to the signs on those streets.
Resident overnight only?
Yeah.
You can't.
I think,
I think, if I understand, you can't just segregate out residents and non-residents and just say one part. These are public streets. People have a right to park there. I understand the dichotomy with Dean College and some of the students. I think we've shown a much more than a greater effort to try to solve this. This is a very isolated issue. But to say no residential overnight or no overnight other than residents is starting to get into a place that I think is going to set off a slippery slope of, well, we just don't want anybody on our streets except for us. And that's where the residential permit system comes in. I just think that there are better options than just saying we're going to have no overnight parking everywhere. Otherwise, if you have no overnight parking on any side street, then residents and no one else can park there, and or family members or other people that come by, and you're going to get asked to have no overnight parking in a lot of other areas.
thank you, Jamie. You wanna keep it?
Yeah. Just
Alright.
have a second.
Do we have a second? Okay, all right, so,
Just the first amendment.
there's two.
2 minutes.
There's two amendments that will move on. I think what we'll do is, I think we're done.
I think we have to approve them with the amendments.
We do
Oh,
have,
we have to
we
vote.
now have to vote on this.
It's like, oh,
Yep.
yeah, okay. No, we have to we have to vote on the amendments. To move on,
We did vote on the amendment.
We did, now we just have to.
vote
do
on the
final
original
vote.
with the amendment.
As amended.
As amended,
Yes.
right, that's what I was trying to say.
Perfect.
Sorry. All right, so I would take a motion can we approve all of
So
them?
moved, yeah.
Everything?
No, just saying that approved us, with amendments approves all of it.
Yes.
Okay, all right, I would take a motion to approve
As,
as amended.
second. He
All
said- he
in
said-
favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Perfect.
I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
Oh, wait,
Hold on.
sorry.
Motion to adjourn.
See, if
I
you're
also
here,
did-
Sorry, non-debatable.
if you were here, I would catch that quicker. Sorry, Jamie.
It's okay. Okay. You also, Madam Chair, there's two other issues to move on to the full council, which is I think the amended fines
Yeah.
the traffic violations, so that would also require a roll call vote. And then also,
Oh, we did.
Roll call vote?
you amended it with the $50, but did you vote to move on those fines as amended?
I thought we
Doing it as
moved,
one.
we
You did?
made a motion to move everything on.
Yes.
Okay,
As
and then the
amended.
last one, which is possibly the most important, because when I hear a lot of folks talk about signage, the reason why the signage is not very good in some of the areas is because the signage is restricted based on the current bylaw. You have to move on the issue of allowing the town administrator to set the rates. You have to vote to take out the language separating merchant and commuter parking out of the police bylaw. If you do not want me to set the rates as currently proposed, Alicia, if you could put it up on the screen, please, then you need to set a rate so that there's a rate
No,
that
we
I can
approved
put
all
in the
of
bylaw of what that's supposed to be.
Okay, I would accept the motion to approve the changes in the, what is this?
We're approving everything as stands.
The fee schedule.
The fee schedule. The verbiage of the change on the fee schedule.
He's
Yep.
talking about K, right?
Yes,
Yes.
he's talking about K. Okay, I thought we approved that all together, but that's okay. I will take a motion to approve.
So move.
All in favor? Oh, we have to do a roll call, right?
No,
Frangelo?
Nope.
No, it's a
Didn't he just-
majority.
You can do voice.
It's a majority. We
Did he
don't
just
need
say
a roll call.
He said roll call.
I-
Okay, all in
I just
favor,
meant a
signify by
vote.
saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. You don't, all
No,
opposed?
no,
No?
no.
Okay, 3-1.
So 3-1 on the fee schedule as a whole, or 3 to?
No, just on K, because that's part of the,
Yeah.
that's not part of the
3-1 on the fee schedule,
K is-
3-1 on K.
K is different than the fee
4-4
schedule.
on the change, the 2 hour, the 1 hour to 2 hour.
We have.
Okay.
We have the Appendix A. We have
Everybody get it?
Appendix A, we have service fee K, we have the parking.
Right, we did 3.
These are 3
Okay.
separate things, yep.
Do you want to vote again?
No, yes.
Do you have any final, that was it, right, Jamie? Because last time I tried to cut you off and,
No, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, well, Ally left. I was going to respond to the handicap request, but I will have the town engineer in case she's still listening at home. I will have Mike Maglio go up and see if there is any other opportunities. I'm not sure there will be any other spaces, but I'll have him take a look. I wanted to just assure her that we have spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to try to make those spaces more acceptable. We may also be able to look at the Ferraris lot at another spot, but I will have the engineer go take a look at that. So I just wanted to make sure I responded to her request, because we are, as I know all of you are in the EDC, we're certainly very sensitive to those types of requests, and we want to make it as hospitable for everybody as possible, so.
yes, thank you, Jamie.
Thank you very much for letting me just make that
Okay.
comment to Ally at the end.
Yeah, I
Thanks.
think, I talked to him before and said we need more handicap, so
Yeah,
so Mike did go out, but maybe he can check it again. Thank you.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, everybody.
thank you.
Thank you.
Feel better. All in favor of a motion to approve?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Debatable.